To eat our liberal ass. All right, let's see.
Where's my, oh, there's that. There we go. All right. Good to go on my end.
Oh, we can't find the best one. Where are we gonna find it, Steve? Oh, it's at the damage report, right?
Yeah.
You really have to see the photo. It's quite awesome. Where is it, Steve? Oh, there it is. Explodes in full panic after humiliating post.
My garbage.
No, no, no. There it is. Let's see. To eat our liberal ass. All right. I'm gonna turn that down and real fast.
Are we sharing?
I will. We can now share. All right, hold on. I guess it doesn't matter. That's just helping me out. Okay,
Yeah.
got it. All right, we're gonna share. Where is he? There he is. All right. Now, do you see the one on the right that says "I will eat your leftist ass"? He literally posted that, like unironically. Is that not amazing? And then his correction here says that because everyone obviously went to town on the message, but he actually means that he's going to literally consume our ass meat when the Great Reset happens, which I'm gonna assume.
So he's not talking about tossing salads. He's talking about cannibalism.
Yes.
Yes.
Somehow that's better. Really. But tell me that picture from the "I will eat your leftist ass." Tell me that is not supposed to be alluring. Like, look at him.
I know he's got the open collar, you know. He's looking like a straight bear there.
Right?
Yeah.
It doesn't look like it. It doesn't look like he's like, oh, no. Like if he was going to be a cannibalist, I think we should have blood or be like, "Arr." But instead he's like, I'm
Yeah.
gonna
Looking like
eat
a
your
bear.
leftist ass.
Let's go to dinner, talk a little bit, walk along
What's
the
your
beach,
salad?
and then come back and I'll eat your leftist ass.
I'm gonna eat your leftist ass.
Better warn Danny. She might not be happy with another man eating my ass.
Well, he's a leftist
Does it-
ass.
If it's farther left, does it taste better? I guess is my question.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Is it
like
because it's seasoned? Because
is
I
it
like
Wagyu beef or something? If you're far left.
well, I mean, it could be because I eat with seasoning in my food. Is that what?
Yeah, maybe that's
I
it.
mean, is my meat more tender? I don't know.
You're free range leftist.
Ooh.
I guess.
I was
Certainly, like if I got to eat something, I'm more of a leg guy, you know, maybe a shoulder, you know.
And again,
I got a pretty decent size set of pecs here, you know, so I probably got, you know, some good chest muscle, you know.
Sure.
My bum is not probably going to be the tastiest part.
I don't know. Well, he's ready to start. I'm gonna eat your leftist ass. So I'm pretty excited about it. And then again, he just put that without any explanation. Just laid it out there.
Yeah.
Like we're all supposed to know what he means. And then he gets mad at the liberals for laughing about tossed salads.
I mean, if I said something that stupid, and I've said a lot of stupid things in my life. That's, you know, part of living. I hope that people take it that way, as opposed to I'm a cannibal and I shouldn't be a part of society.
Who is looking forward to cannibalizing people? And his message says like after 10 days. Like I think I can go longer than 10 days without food before I cannibalize somebody.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I would eat like at least everything else before, you know, that there's plenty of like dried noodles, rice, you know,
Right?
things that, you know,
Yeah.
even
You
for
can
me
even
as a
Acorn.
diabetic
You could dumpster
would,
dive for a while.
Acorn.
yeah.
You can
Yeah.
crack those fuckers and soak them. You can.
Sometimes you can
I-
get some good pizza out of the
Yeah.
dumpster.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Sure.
Yeah, there was a guy years and years ago wrote a book about traveling the country with his dog, and he shared tips about how to find the best stuff in dumpsters.
Yeah. Well, Dunkin' Donuts at the end of a shift.
Yeah.
They have to throw out all their donuts. We knew that.
Just don't eat chicken from KFC or not KFC, whatever the southern version of KFC is.
Churches.
Churches, yes.
So
it
what
is
does churches do?
It's not that they do anything. It's just that it's probably sat in the southern heat for too long.
Oh yeah.
You will end up with explosive diarrhea.
Oh, well, yeah.
It is a guarantee.
It is a guarantee. Well, if you
from
ever
experience.
So yeah, so today we're not terribly fake newsing. We're fake newsing in that the whole world is fake news, and so we're gonna break down stuff or talk about stuff that maybe isn't being talked about. Because I actually had an existential crisis for the last couple of weeks. I've been kind of like, we started as a little newspaper that kind of covered East Falls, and then the East Falls people didn't want us here. Or at least some of them didn't, and enough of them. So
The loudest
the loud ones, the community council was like, "You're not buying in, so you're out." And we just kind of like, we're not going to fight. So we went to Germantown, and like, then there's like people that want to. Chestnut Hill Local wants to be the one going to all the meetings, and when there's an important meeting, they kind of try to muscle us out, and that's fine. Like we tell our own little stories, but I was kind of like, well, what are we even doing? And how it's just like a drop in a bucket. Like, what's the whole point of this? And then I guess
I don't understand why they
Mm.
like is there a quota on journalists allowed to go to community
Right?
meetings?
Yeah, I don't know.
mean, I've
Right?
never experienced anything, of course, like that. Who the hell is going to tell me?
Right.
Yeah.
No, unless like you're a cop and gonna arrest me, and then
Oh, sure. Well, it's not like
I'll-
that.
I will own you, motherfucker.
I'm sure. Well, it's not like that much. It's more like, we can't, we have people that are our friends and on these Facebook groups, and they, have always helped us. And for like years, we had a great relationship, and we would go to the meetings and we would report them, and they would take our reporting and they would talk about it on the Facebook groups, and it was great. And then at some point it became like they, suddenly people just don't want to talk to us as much anymore. And then you see they're just kind of, I don't know. I think that we got big enough so Chestnut Hill Local wasn't into sharing. Remember, they just started coming to the meetings and pressuring people to.
Yeah, it's more about the people who are organizing the meetings having a preference for Chestnut Hill Local.
Yeah.
They think that's the prestige publication in this area.
Right. So like, well, we can still tell.
Honestly, I had never heard of them until you just said them. So
I'm honestly, they're not.
they can't be doing too much.
Well, they're actually owned by the community council there. So to me, I kind of like discredit like.
Yeah,
you have to be an independent source. You have to not be funded by homeowners. In a way, right? Like that, they're obviously have a narrative that they would like, that they're trying to preserve their neighbors. So they're against, big development that is affordable housing and that, all that kind of shit. So that's kind of where we're at. But anyway, so I was kind of like having my little existential crisis, and then I kind of figured that like, I think the point of all of this is just to make sure that there is some kind of independent voice somewhere. And that's why I really value you, Cory, because you're an incorrigibly independent voice in the best possible way. And then all of our printing, I guess, is just keeping the door open and keeping the trust so that people who enjoy us, when it's time, when something really goes down, that they'll trust that we're not bullshitting them, that we've been here and they know who we are. And so we can be that platform when you discover, when you are ready, when we have to pull the pants down of a public figure or really, eat their liberal ass. We'll have the platform to do it. So that's what makes me happy. So I would like to, I know that you're itching to talk about some things, and I am itching to learn some things. So let's get to it.
Right on. So earlier this week, we had talked about Kensington a bit, and we were talking about the needle, the taking away like the needle exchanges and like, stuff like that. Well, Parker, I guess on Thursday, which was actually right before we did that show Friday, had her budget, out, and she presented it on it's City Hall at council. I didn't get to go because I was working, but I found today that she had taken or wants to take all of the funding for the needle exchange away from those folks that are dealing with you know um drug abuse issues, and like we were talking, I had talked about a little bit about, how the HIV infection rate had already been rising in that particular community. And like hearing this, like the damage from that is going to be exponential. Like it's already bad. Like you're literally making it so much worse,
Mm-hmm.
like for folks, because they're gonna do their drugs. They're going to
They're
do it.
addicted.
Yeah,
Addiction, addicted. Yeah, right?
like until they're able to get treatment, like they're gonna do it or they're gonna die.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like heroin is and opioids are particularly like affect your body like terribly.
Yeah, you stop
you know?
making certain things because you're taking in
Yeah.
drugs. So if
Like
you go
there's a
without
reason
it,
why like when you come off of it, you have to have like certain medications and stuff,
absolutely.
But she's got like, she's doing this so weirdly. She's taking away like immediate life preserving things, some of them anyways. In this case, the needle exchange, which some of that money was going to be coming from money won in court by victims of the opioid, the pharmaceutical companies. I think it was like 160 or 180 million dollars,
Mm-hmm.
that was supposed to go to, you know, prevention and like, you know,
Right.
harm reduction. So she's taking that money out of there. And that's not all of the money that they get isn't from the city, but like that's a good enough chunk of it. $40,000, I think, per year,
Mm-hmm.
is a big chunk,
Right.
for them,
Sure.
not for the city. Like that's nothing for the city,
Absolutely.
which leads me to the other thing that they want to do, which is they want to spend $100 million on new triage and wellness facilities.
What's that?
I I'm not entirely sure what it's supposed to mean. It sounds a little bit like almost like the harm reduction facilities that they had, said no to.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, at least in the way it's titled, it does. But that's probably not what it's going to be because, they already said no to that.
Right.
What it also sounds like it could be is like another access point for like some sort of care, like recovery programs and things like that. Yeah, develop insurance companies, recovery treatment plans and whatnot like that. But those folks obviously aren't ready for that. So
Right.
that's kind of the point of the harm reduction,
Yes.
is to keep them alive until they are ready for that.
Yeah.
And now you're,
Wasn't there also something in there about incarceration? If they choose not to take the services, there's incarceration involved.
yes, that is part of the plan, which is the exact opposite of what
You're just gonna
every single like person in that that deals with that says needs to happen. It is like the most harmful thing that you can do, particularly in our prison system, our jail system, because our prison system is actually just a jail system. like are the conditions in these jails are the absolute worst. They're on par with like Las Vegas and LA and the one in New York, the island, whatever the heck it's called. I forget what it's called.
Rikers.
Rikers, yeah. Rikers. Like it is literally on par with those. Like the number of deaths, the number of like, overdoses, like suicides, murders, like it's insane in these jails. On top of like just inhumane conditions.
Mhm.
It's outrageous. Outrageous.
Right. Why is she doing this?
She is looking, I think,
Right. Obviously, we're speculating.
yeah, which is kind of my job. So
Yeah.
I think she's looking at the long term. And I think that enough of the larger nonprofits have gotten in her ear that she is siding with that because that's money that they don't have to spend. It's kind of like, I was the other thing I eventually want to talk about is Project 2025. I got to obviously read that whole 900-page book, which I am loath to do, but needs to be done. But it's kind of the same principle of like privatizing, public service. Government's job is supposed to be to take care of those
Yeah.
that need it, you know, and she seems to want to privatize that.
Right.
Very some her budget and her platform is very Republican-esque.
I was gonna say it seems
Mhm.
like she's very like I get the feeling she wants to be that tough on crime.
Well,
That
that's absolutely what she wanted, even though, and she actually ran on that, even though like a lot of people in the city don't want that.
right.
And know that if anything, that's the exact opposite of what we need to be doing because we've been doing that and it's never worked.
And shouldn't she know? Doesn't she come from a background of like, wasn't she in jail or something like that? She has like a
She had like a DUI or something like that. That's what I fucking do.
well,
Yeah.
still.
Yeah, it's funny because you saw something like that in New York where they had the National Guard down in the subway and they still had a shooting. And you
Yeah.
interviewed plenty of, and at least I saw at least one person who was a black woman who had a big bag. And she goes, I just knew they were going to stop me to search my bag. And they did.
Of course.
So, I mean, safety for who? Like it looks okay, but again, you're getting somebody getting shot literally near a police substation
Right.
in the subway.
Well,
And you have National Guards all over the place. So what is the security? How's that going to work?
that's the thing about, tough on crime is it feels good for some people. For me, if it would feel good, but I'm a upper poor, white dude who owns his own home, owns my own business. Like,
Right.
I don't need to feel any safer. I have all of the safety, benefits in that regard. Anyways, there are other areas where I'm not safe, they're not doing anything about those.
Right.
But that isn't it. Like I can walk, out of my house and I can walk up to, 48th Street, to go to karate, on Mondays and Tuesdays in the evening, and I could walk back late in the evening, if I wanted to, and I'm safe. I have no problem with that. I can walk around most parts of the city with my camera gear, and I've only been bothered, like had somebody try to rob me once in 15 years.
Not bad.
And that was their problem. It didn't work out well for them.
Where was that?
Kensington, ironically.
We were just thought, yeah.
Ironically, but like I said, it didn't work out well for them.
What'd you do?
Slapped them in the face with my camera.
Ow! With the rig. Ouch.
No, with the lens. It was a metal lens.
Oh,
Knocked him slap out.
wow.
Hmm.
Gotta do what you gotta do.
Yeah, I felt bad and I stayed around to like make sure he was okay. I didn't want to like, really hurt the dude.
Right.
But still,
Yeah.
fucking touch my shit.
Oh,
Mhm. Yeah.
But again, these aren't the solutions, and she's got to know it because the data supports the exact opposite. Remember, before she was elected, I had written that long, piece about what the data shows actually works. If you want to pull that up so we can look at that, we could do that.
Right. And also she knows from
She
like
does. She's got it. She's
she's
got to
already
know.
when she was a council person, she she was pretty good about that.
She was in support of it. Yeah.
She was. And she just changed because,
Yeah. Well, you have to look at the funders at that point. Who is funding her campaign?
Clark. Hello, Mayor Parker. No, Preston.
No,
Preston Parker.
Nope, not that one either.
Dying for solutions.
Dying for
Nope, not that one either. At least I don't think so. It's the one about crime in the city and like where the solutions. I did write that for you guys, didn't I?
Dying for Solutions. That's bans. Council member. No. Well, here, I'll share my
That was a
screen.
supervised
You
injection
can-
site.
you
Yeah,
can-
that was the supervised injected site vote.
All right, here, let me share screen. And we can. And that's it, right? Is that it?
Yeah.
No, that's it.
It's
They look
screen.
like the same one. Okay, that's
They
it.
do, yeah.
Okay. Right, so we've got Dying for Solutions, Pressing Parker, Fact Checking, Historic Showdown, Beyond.
Blueprint beyond policing,
Is
maybe.
that it?
Yes, beyond policing. Blueprint beyond policing. Yes.
All right.
I knew it was something like that.
A Marshall Plan to Solve Gun Violence. Linfest Institute for Journalism poll found 64% of Philadelphians reported hearing a gunshot in their neighborhood over the previous year. Nearly half, 49%, say that gun violence significantly impacts their quality of life. So where were we getting to our oh, here we go. Is that we're looking for the Penn study?
Yes. So what I had found was that, when you invest in neighborhoods, like it brings down like crime significantly.
Right. In greening and restoring vacant lots in 500 Philly neighborhoods, the study found the benefits after treatment of vacant lots in neighborhoods below the poverty line. Gun violence fell by 29.1, burglary dropped by 21.9, nuisance crimes fell by 30%, overall a reduction in crime by 13 and a third percent. That's pretty good.
That's a significant reduction.
It really is.
We had already been reducing our crime by our homicide rate by approximately 15% year over year since its peak in 2022. And so those focusing our attention on violent crimes, solving violent crimes, and investing in communities, investing in things that actually materially benefit people is clearly what works.
Yeah.
The data supports that. And that data comes from a wide set of, studies. It's studies that have been known like since the 30s.
Right.
When you invest in like kids, like in things for kids to do and like, in people's homes and like making sure that they have food, make sure that they have housing. Like when you make sure people's needs are met, crime goes down. When you make sure kids are being entertained, in healthy, safe ways, youth crime goes down.
Right.
Kids are more apt to go to college, or invest in themselves when they're not being over policed
Yeah.
when their neighborhoods don't feel like prisons, neighborhood prisons, you
Right.
know.
Right. I liked how you had said that if the city controller's office reported in 2018 that if the city invested 30,000 per homicide in proven reduction efforts alone, such as the gun ones we're talking about, homicides could decrease by 10% annually. Over 5 years would spend about 43 million and reduce homicide by 35%, which would have an economic impact and a return of about at least 70 million on this investment. So that's pretty amazing. And the crime prevention stuff that you listed were year-round schooling, and that's something that Parker wanted.
That's something she had talked about.
I like
Yes.
that idea. Was that in her budget at all?
I did not. Let me pull up her budget. Increasing capacity for community policing, Kensington violence reduction, taking care of business, illegal dumping. She has a lot of good stuff here. There's a lot of good things here.
Good.
But she doubles and triples down on things that we don't need. I am not seeing that in her budget.
Okay. And as youth workforce development can reduce violence by as much as 35 to 40%. Upgrades and installation to CCTV cameras. That's amazing to have that around. Video surveillance is a very cost-effective way to reduce, detect, and solve crimes. Parking lots of public transit. So instead of the National Guard, if you could just put cameras up everywhere, that might be
Yeah, I
a
mean,
way to help.
we watch our share of true crime documentaries, and in England, you can see so many of those things get solved by them just leapfrogging one camera to another, and actually tracing where the perpetrator came from, where he went to. I used to be against public cameras, but watching how effective they are in solving crimes is pretty amazing.
Right. Air conditioning. That was another one on your list. That's fascinating.
Yeah, because crime in the city goes up in the summer, and it goes up in the summer because the heat rises in the summer.
Yep.
And when you're outside, because in the heat, you're upset because it's freaking hot.
Mhm.
You're more likely to be emotional and, blow up over minor things, which a lot of like the shootings and stuff that I've heard about, like in, East Germantown and in our neighborhood now in North or Southwest Philly, it's because of dumb stuff like over a woman or
Face
over,
somebody made. Like,
yeah,
the look on your face when you said
yeah,
that. You stepped on my foot and didn't say I'm sorry appropriately.
yeah. Like take care of like people's actual needs. That's one of the things that I pointed to is greening the city, has, a significant impact.
Yep. Yep. And it helps everybody.
Yeah,
A greener city.
trees are
Everybody likes
huge.
that. It's
Yeah.
better for
Reduces pollution, it cools the city. Especially, going forward where we know we're facing a climate crisis.
certainly.
So I really wish she would see that, do more for that. She wants to shift real property tax that goes over to the school district from 55% to 56%. So that's somewhat good.
About the arts, anything to support the arts?
I did not see that in this document from them. Let me see which one I have. Yeah, this is the Philly one. This is a 5-year budget. So she plans on investing about $2 billion over 5 years. She wants to increase community policing in this budget. Her proposal is to hire 400 more police officers. We had talked about that, or I had talked about that. A lot of the problem with Philly PD, as far as like manpower, it goes to like people abusing the sick time
Duh,
Yeah,
yeah.
Reinhardt blew it open in, what was it, 2020? A couple years, maybe a year before she ran for the mayor.
Yeah, yeah.
And it was a crazy amount of cops who were
It was like 30 some odd
disability,
percent. Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah.
and they were working, a lot were working second jobs.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's insane.
Yeah, the other thing is the 911 system is kind of antiquated and they don't have enough people, or it's either the people or the infrastructure or a combination of both. So the 911 calls don't get routed as effectively.
Well, that is something that is in her reducing violent crime section on her budget.
Yeah.
She wants to employ or deploy more strategic personnel to address the 911, issues with 911, making technology upgrades to support investigations. $45 million investment in a new forensic lab, which is something that we do need
Desperately,
in
right?
in
Not
Philly.
solving crimes.
Yep.
That's one
Yeah.
thing, like, the investment, only real investment she needed to make in policing right now.
Right?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be right back at
Oh yeah, sure.
Take it away, Steve.
Yeah. No, I mean, if you had been more diligent in getting some of those officers off of the disability program, you'd have more people answering the calls and being out on the street. Yeah, it's funny because we have friends who they're almost resistant to that fact. Somehow it's Krasner's fault.
Yeah, I hear that all the time, particularly from the right, and they've gone after him. And I recently they passed that bill that has some sort of state prosecutor coming in anywhere near like
So
a septic stop, which is like literally everywhere in Philly. Like I don't know a single block really that doesn't have a septic stop, somewhere near there. So like I think that's just a means of like Republicans trying to strip power from progressives.
Yeah.
In the city.
And they also need to get, I mean, a lot of these ones up in Harrisburg who have voted for that have significant prison populations in their area.
Oh yeah.
Does them no good to have fewer prisoners.
Of course not.
Krasner is a little too light on crime.
Of course not. Yeah. Well, and the answer isn't, you're never going to arrest your way out of crime. It's never going to work. If anything, you make it worse because now you've created a segment of the population that's virtually unemployable. You have to open up employment options for folks who have criminal histories. You got to stop, the use of like background checks in jobs where they're not necessary. To that, I see, I can, obviously you need to do background checks on people who work in the medical industry, in education, in policing, which apparently they don't do well enough, according to, a comedian friend of mine who got all the way up to go to training. For it, he had through all of the background checks, everything, all the way up to the training until somebody happened to notice who he was because of his advocacy, for marijuana, and that he had multiple felony arrests.
That they didn't know until.
Like, how do you do that? Like, if you're like, I don't understand.
Was he just going through it just to see?
He was doing it for shits and giggles, obviously. Like he didn't really want to be a cop.
Yeah, that's good. It's good material.
Awesome.
Yeah,
we should all do that.
Yeah,
I'd be curious. I'd make a good cop.
Yeah. Well, they had a book called New Jack where a guy went undercover reporter to become a prison guard.
Yeah, there was that's a different. I'm thinking of a different one, but there was a book about it. I think I have it on my shelf somewhere over there. But yeah, it was about he became a prison guard for a private prison company and saw like all of the dirt. He let out all the dirt.
Yeah.
Well,
And the sad part is,
you can do that and nothing
Right.
changes.
well, the sad part is he was undercover and knew he was undercover and was still getting depressed just
Yep.
watching what he
Sure.
had to do. I mean, it's like
Yeah.
working in a slaughterhouse. You're
You-
murdering things. Eventually
you
it's
just-
going to hurt you. He's like, I realized my job was just to take away other people's freedom.
Yeah.
And he knew he was only in it for a short term and it was a story.
Yeah. So
And
Jesus.
like how many percentage of those people are just pleading out? They don't even
95%
That's just
of
crazy.
all criminal convictions are based on plea deals. And it's because they're number one, a lot of times they're trying to fight their case
Right.
from inside jail, which is virtually impossible. And then on top of that, you're likely being represented by, a public defender, which we don't invest in public defense
I know.
in this country. So like it's a really one-sided game.
Oh, yeah.
Criminal justice in this country is a one-sided game.
Mhm.
And the prosecutors have all the all the toys.
Right. Because you say
Yeah.
tough on crime, voters love it, politicians like it, and then the people that build prisons love it because then, oh, we're going to lock people up. And everyone's like, yay, because you can lock them up and they make money per every person. So, I mean, it's a great racket, but it doesn't.
But the reality is the voters really don't love it. Like,
well, yeah. Well,
like we know that because like we've seen the data on that. Like they want to reduce crime, but not necessarily be tough on crime because
the loud
that's
ones are though.
yes,
Whenever
yes.
whenever you dare mention not being tough on crime, there's always some asshole popping up in the comments like, oh yeah, like that's gonna help, but
Actually, yeah, it does. I don't rely on feelings. I rely on data.
which is how we're here, right? So many people are relying on feelings like I want to eat your liberal ass, which is a feeling.
Apparently a very deep, very passionate, tender feeling on Alex Jones's part.
No. According to my wife, it is. It's pretty tender.
It's pretty tender.
Yeah, I was surprised that there was actually, I'm going to look it up. I don't want to take us off on a tangent, but there was actually going through the police reports for the paper. I was surprised to see a program called Police Assisted Diversion. And I thought that was a step in the right direction.
Well, there's always been diversion programs out there. I don't think that they've necessarily always gotten the support that they need or that they should have. But honestly, a lot of the damage in policing is done at the point of contact.
Mm-hmm.
It is an incredibly dehumanizing experience to be stopped in the first place, particularly if you haven't done anything wrong or, in a very public space. And then oftentimes you're put in handcuffs if you're being detained. The automatic assumption if you're being stopped by police is that you did do something wrong, even though the majority of the time is that you didn't. That was one of the reasons why, there was such a huge issue with stop and frisk.
Mm-hmm.
Because like it was stopping all of these young black men, young Hispanic men, and oftentimes they didn't do anything. Oftentimes, like they rarely ever found what they were supposed to be looking for. I think the data had been like 1% of those stops led to an arrest or finding a weapon on them. So it clearly doesn't work to do that. All you do is make people feel unsafe.
Right.
Particularly with the number of police involved shootings, which, I mean, technically it's rare in the sense that if you're looking, globally as far as like the entire US population, but when you break it down to, the number of black folks or poor folks, like that number, like that percentage goes up significantly because that's who they're focused on. They're not focused on Jimmy Bob, in his, $200,000 home, or, $500,000 mansion. They're focused on Billy over here,
Right.
or Rajim,
Right. They want
in
poor
his,
people because poor people are going to be easy to put in prison. Poor
yeah,
people
they're easy targets. They're
because they don't
easy
have
to
the
beat in
lawyers.
court.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
They don't necessarily have the education that they need to, fight their own cases.
Right, so scoop
Well-
them up, get them off the street, look, make people think that they're being, oh, look how many arrests we made. Oh, thank goodness, we must be safer. That's
Yeah.
what they're trying to do.
Well, yeah, we met actually. We were talking to a person in Isaiah Thomas's office, and he walked us through that whole process about the research and the homework they did on creating that stop and frisk law. And these guys were very thorough and detailed, and they invited in police leadership, including Danielle Outlaw, or reps from her office, sat in on these meetings. They went through the entire motor vehicle code and found out which ones. They actually asked the cops which ones of these result in the least opportunity to grab a weapon. Which one of these are the least possible ways to get a weapon. They talked about those 8 things they identified. I believe it was 8: taillights out, things hanging from the rear view mirror, all that kind of shit. Those are the ones they agreed to were not useful enough, so let's not deal with those. So the cops work with them on this. But you know what happened? The police union refused to sit in on the meetings, and then when the law came out, they came out swinging that, hey, this is ridiculous, this jeopardizes safety and all this, while they knew all along the police were meeting with Thomas's office.
And that's the thing is a lot of times, the officers on the street, they don't want to be doing the things that they're having to do. And it's their representation, that's terrible. Like the police unions are some of the most extreme right-wing, unions in existence. And like they're all about getting themselves money. It's not it's about CYA and getting themselves money.
Yeah.
It's not about like protecting, the population. It's not about protecting the officers from like actual harm. It's about CYA. If my guy, beats somebody up, how am I gonna, protect him from,
Right.
accountability?
Yep.
Right.
Yep. How to hide it.
Or get another job. If you get released from this department, they'll find you one in another department that's nearby. Yeah.
It's so weird. So frustrating. That whole club is so disgusting when you go down that rabbit hole.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, and again, the whole, like you said, the sort of looking at things from the exact wrong perspective, like removing the needle exchange, removing the small, the housing, the small houses,
Oh, I lost you.
Sorry, we're back, right?
Okay. Yeah.
I accidentally
Okay.
hit the mute button. I was moving the thing. Sorry.
But yeah, people aren't coming to Kensington for the free showers at Savage Sisters or the small houses or the great needles they're giving away. They're coming for the drugs.
They're desperate.
Like, and the people, like you say, are not there to be told when they're ready to accept help.
I had just seen something about Savage Sisters earlier. That was one of the harm reduction groups that had actually lost. They had lost their storefront.
Yep.
I
think because Ketsi or whatever her name is. I think she interfered, I think.
Yes. Yes. And the other one that was on the way out, being driven out, is Prevention Point.
Yes. Oh.
Do they have?
Nice.
I think I saw they have their
Good
lease.
guy,
Their
right?
leases
Like
are kind
that.
of secure, though, aren't they? Or more secure anyway than Savage Sisters was. I thought I saw something.
Yes, it is. But they're going to be losing a lot of money.
Oh yeah.
From their budget because of this policy.
That's so sad.
It is because like I've known a lot of people that have those issues. And many of them want, like I've talked to so many of them, and they want to get better, and they want to, get help. But like I said earlier this week, when they do go to rehab, they come out and they're right back in the same situation.
Yes, we're not giving them supportive services. We're not supporting people who on the borderline of sliding into it. If they had a house, if they had a job, if they had something to live for, that could keep people out of addiction. But I don't understand that at all. It's just so I watched a lot of intervention in my day, and it was always so sad that this really simple basic things that people who are dealing with addiction, no matter what it is, if it's alcohol or sniffing glue or opioids or whatever, it's just they feel like shit. They feel like nothing. They don't feel like they're worth anything. And to take that person and then say, oh well, you can get better only if and by the way, off you go. Like that's like the meanest thing you can do to someone who is so down already.
Yeah.
I'm not even looking at it from like a mean perspective. You're correct. It is incredibly cruel. But just from a practicality perspective, getting somebody into rehab, the idea is to make sure that they have all of the tools they need to not fall back and use again.
Sure.
So you get them into rehab, and then they finish their time and they've gotten clean, and you want them when they leave rehab to remain clean. So how does like having them back on the street or in a shelter even assist in that? It doesn't. It doesn't. It doesn't. It does the exact opposite, because you're dealing with the same traumas that you went in with. You're, dealing with being in this same survival mode as you were when you went in. You're going to be around the same people you were before you were clean.
It's all
It
just right
is,
there.
yeah, it's entirely counterproductive.
Right.
You like, you want to make sure there is enough not just incentive, but like supports to prevent somebody from using again.
Yes. Yes. To want to choose. You want to give them reasons to keep choosing every day that they wake up. I have a reason. I want to get to this job because when I get that paycheck, I'm going to do this with it, and I'm going to get here, and I'm going to meet that, and you build on it. You can't just whip the rug out from under it. But you know what it's reminding me of? A lot of like I heard somewhere that or researched or whatever that so if you don't have health insurance, like, or bad health insurance or whatever, or disability, whatever the government will pay for, they don't give you, like, you can get a transplant is covered, but the drugs that keep you with you still have to buy those to pay for the drugs that allow you to support the organ that you just got a transplant for. So a lot of times people will get a transplant and then not be able to afford the upkeep of it, and then wind up spiraling out and ruining the thing again. And then they wind up back in the same.
That's insane.
It doesn't
That's
make any.
insane.
And then they wind up in the hospital, and of course, all the money. It's lobbyists, right? Like we're the only country in the whole freaking planet that lets people buy politicians legally. I don't understand this.
Well, I don't think we're the only one, but we're we're one of the worst.
We're pretty bad. Yeah, we're very upfront about it.
We're setting the pace. Yeah.
Which, speaking of Medicaid and Medicare, we before we went on, we were talking about, this new law that, well, it's not a new law, but a law that I just come to my attention. The AP had been reporting that state Medicaid offices are targeting people who's died their homes to recoup healthcare costs. So what they're doing is they're targeting poor elderly folks and their families, because obviously the home is the only, like, the best way of gaining, you know, lifting yourself up out of poverty.
Generational wealth.
Yeah, generational wealth.
You can pass that on to your.
Yeah. So they're targeting poor elderly folks to take their homes after they died to pay for medical costs in a country where like we're the richest country in the world.
Yeah.
You know, and you're stealing old dead people's families, families' homes. Like, it's ridiculous. And that is something that's happening in Pennsylvania. The AP story is about Massachusetts law that allows for that. I did the research and went back and found that Pennsylvania has the same law or a similar law.
And are they applying it? Are people losing their homes, or is everyone that's on Medicare losing their?
It's not everyone. There are exceptions. I think let's look at what the law is. The law requires that every state try to get back the money the state pays for somebody's Medicaid benefits. The state then uses this money to pay for long-term care. It's basically they're taking the home to try to, pay for other, it's
Well, I know that if you go
paying Paul.
Right, if you go into a nursing home and you have a house,
that's not the same thing. That is not the same thing. They can do that. They can do that to pay for the nursing home. That kind of makes sense.
Expensive. It does.
Right.
It shouldn't be like that, but it kind of makes sense.
It does. But that's how Donna was in a place, because she didn't have a house.
Right.
So if you're an older person,
and that's private as well. The nursing homes. I mean,
Yes.
you've got a lot more leeway to say, hey, I need to be paid on this. Whereas the state, I mean, come on.
That's taxpayer money.
You've
That's
got
our money.
right. And
taking our money.
Doesn't it also have to do, I think maybe I just saw one instance of it where they said that if you are getting money as a relative who's providing home care services, that's one of the primary sources what they're going after. Because there was a story about a woman who wanted to stay at home, and her daughter was like, of course, you're going to stay at home as long as you want. And by the way, they will pay from Medicaid for me to perform some services or be a caretaker. And she got dinged for that, as and when they brought in health aides. I mean,
I don't know about that, but I know that there's supposed to be an exception for, like a family member like that took care of you and lived in the home.
Yeah.
There's supposed to be an exception to that they're not supposed to take the home if that's the case. That's one of the exceptions.
Okay.
Let's see, where was I? The exceptions are the death of any, if like you have like, say if I died and Danny was living here, they couldn't take it then. But after she died, if John's over 21, they can take it. If John is under 21, they can't take it. They have to wait till he's 21. If John is disabled or John, I don't know. That does make much sense the way they wrote that. Joint tenancy of like rider survivorship, like tenants, like if you have tenants, they can't do it. Like there's certain like things but it's still sick. Like, if it like most people that are on Medicaid, like that's their primary residence. Like it's their family's, future.
Sure.
Like when I bought my home, like the reason I bought a home was because I want to leave John something, and you are taking that away from me as a human being and a father, taking away that from my son, like that's sick. That's sick that we do this.
It is. And again, in the richest country and we're like the non-richest country. Like the other countries are here, and we're like here as far as how rich we are compared to other countries.
Well, some of us are anyways.
Well, the country itself, comparing to others. I remember that David Krauss had a good piece on that, and he broke it down. But it's just insane. It doesn't make any sense why we're so cruel. And it's cruelty. I'm sorry. It's a failure of imagination and a sick mean streak in our nation. That's something that we deal with.
And we're probably not gonna get to talk about it today, but when we do talk about Project 2025,
Right.
the Republicans want to make things infinitely worse.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's terrifying. It's absolutely terrifying.
Infinitely worse.
Oh, yeah.
They want to turn this into a big A authoritarian country.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they want
And
for white people, for white
yeah,
men, for white men.
white Christian men.
White men. Yep, white Christian men, exactly. White Christian men. That's what they want. It's bizarre. And they're so vocal about it and it's so specific. As you said, they literally have a manifesto all ready to go.
Yeah, they literally wrote a book about it.
Yeah, they wrote the book on that. Literally wrote that. And I don't understand why there isn't more panicking or more.
Wait, here's why. Remember, I don't know if you remember this or not. The same think tank, the Heritage Foundation, in the early 2000s had written a similar thing about military dominance, the expected how to keep the military dominant in the world, called Project for a New American Century. And there had been a lot of conspiracy theories around that, particularly around 9/11. That was one of the main sources for all of the insane 9/11 conspiracy theories, because one of the lines in it was that America needed a new Pearl Harbor. And what, the way that was read was that 9/11 was that new Pearl Harbor. I don't think that was the case. I don't subscribe to conspiracy theories like that. But a lot of people do, and that's like the subconscious reasoning for that prescription in wanting to believe those conspiracy theories, because Project for a New American Century was pretty wild. Like that was it was pretty wild, and like this was their plan. I don't think 9/11 was that part of that.
Right. But still, yeah.
Another aspect of that, that is the invasion of Iraq, which ultimately had nothing to do with 9/11 or with any conspiracy theories. It was because Bush wanted to finish the job his dad had done. So.
And he didn't really, did he? He just made a big mess.
Yep. That's how we got
Well, I mean, Saddam Hussein did die.
But we got into Afghanistan. That was another.
Well, that's again one of the scripts of our own making. In investing in the Mujahideen, without understanding, Middle Eastern, even though Afghanistan technically isn't Middle Eastern, but their culture is based on Middle Eastern culture. Like they don't understand like how like the Middle Eastern mind thinks. Like they think they do.
Right.
White liberals think they do too, and they don't.
Yeah.
And we've effed up a lot of the world because of that.
Yeah, it's a shame. I mean, again, if you knew anything about the history of Afghanistan, which I'm sure some of these guys did but didn't care about it, that's where a lot of imperial powers go to die.
Yeah. What was the phrase that I had heard? How did that story go? You can come in here and you can invade Afghanistan, but how are you going to leave? And that was like a running joke among the tribal leaders over there. Like they told the Russians that, and the Russians left with their tail between their legs.
And we kind of did too.
Yeah. So
what do we do?
What do you mean? What do we do?
Watch your asses,
About all
because
this.
Alex
Watch-
Jones is out there. That's what we need to
We
do.
need to be careful.
Watch our liberal
watch our
asses.
liberal ass. Cory.
Well, I should work, at least do some more workout and some more karate and get it toned up for him. You know?
That'd be very nice.
You'll be
Yeah.
marbled.
Ooh,
Get a
finally,
good fine marble for him.
my marbled liberal ass.
Just don't toss my salad.
That's just wrong. All right. Yeah. Well, this is great. What are we up at? We're on 3, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're doing 3.
Very cool.
We did good.
Nice.
Right on.
Yeah, we gave some real news. Sorry about that.
No,
If anyone tuned in, sorry about that.
The one person.
No, I think that's what we need to be doing, is like parsing it out. Like, I think we should be breaking it down into segments, like, you know, so that we're doing what we're supposed to be doing as a news organization, but we're also having fun, you know, with the, you know, fake news stuff, you know.
Right. And I'll gonna be practicing when I have a little bit more time. I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm getting on top of my I've had a lot of work to do recently, but I'm clearing that out. And my goal is to, like, hopefully as we go through these, we're gonna find some nice clips that I can take from these conversations we have. And actually, I think that we might do better with a speaker view, right? So that each person can talk. And
Yeah, I think that would probably be better. One thing that I think would be helpful for us is if we had our own Slack channel. Like, I know a lot of podcasts and news organizations use Slack, you know, for workflow purposes.
Right. Well, I have Slack on all my stuff. So do you have Slack? Have you anyone?
I have Slack on my stuff too. So
we can open a Slack channel, whatever. We can do that. Yeah, that's fine. I'm in.
Yeah, sure.
Cool. That'll help us. That's why I made the text thread thing, you know, to help, you know, communicate so that we're all communicating together. So
all right, well, we'll do that. That'll be fun.
Yeah, sounds good.
All right, cool. All right, well, this was fun. This was, again, we're still practicing. It's